Well, hello everybody. This is John, and fairly recently I was made an honorary member of a local railroad club, and I keep getting invited to come down and run my trains. Well, they do have a DC track there, but I don't know. DC seems kind of boring to me, because all you can do is stop and go backwards. And, well, that's it, really. So I thought, I want to put DCC in this. So I contacted Digitrax, and they were nice enough to send me 2 decoders, because I have 2 locomotives. So I've been watching Dan do these videos on how to put DCC into your locomotives for years now. And I thought, I'm going to try to do it, because I've never done this before. And I want to show people that you can do it if you try, and it's not that hard. So the first thing I'm going to do is take this thing apart. And something else I should mention is I'm filming this whole thing on my phone. So, and I put the phone in front of me, and I'm looking down at my hands with the tripod in front of me. And I figured that would give you a good view of what I'm looking at. So I know this is a Kato, so I know all I needed to do was sort of spread the sides and that the mechanism would fall out, and that's exactly what happened. Now I also know, because I've been doing some research on the internet, that this has to be taken apart by removing this gray thing here, and then these little tabs on either side will lift up, and this sort of orange brown colored thing is the factory light board, and it'll just come out once I've removed those things. So that'll be the first step. And before I get too far into this thing, I should mention that I've kind of looked online and sort of just to see how other people have done this, because the decoder that I'm using has sound and DCC in it. So I'm going to put a speaker in here, and it also has a capacitor that I need to fit in here somewhere. And I've seen online that there is a way to do this, to fit everything in here. So anyway, I got the tabs up, and I got that little plastic piece off, and if I remember right, this kind of, yeah, it slides forward a little bit. There it is, and that just comes off. Now I have my decoder here, and I'm going to tell you what it is. It's the SDN144K0a. The next thing I have to do is to isolate the motor. And the way I have to do this, if I understand everything that I've looked at online, and if I understand what I've seen Dan do all these years, I have to put some Kapton tape around these areas where these pins come up, because that's the power coming from the track. So basically what I'm trying to do is get the power from the track to only go into the decoder, which is going to sit right here on top of this where the light board was. So I'm going to do that next, and to do it I have to remove these copper strips here. These are some kind of contact strip, and I'm trying to pay attention so I remember how everything was oriented here. But once I have these off, I'm going to place the Kapton tape right where these tabs come up, so that way these tabs will not contact the copper strip. Okay, so I don't know if you can see this too well, but there's a tab, or a little indentation thing here, then a hole, and then another, well, it's not an indentation, it's actually some kind of a raised piece there. My idea here is that I want to have this edge straight, okay? And I'm just going to fold this over so that I know it's protecting the way it's supposed to. And I'm going to do this to both copper strips. And once it's insulated like this, I can put it back in. This is something you always have to do before you put a decoder in. You have to isolate the motor, because if you don't isolate the motor, you're going to blow up your decoder. Okay, I sound like I know what I'm talking about, and that part I do know because I've watched Dan doing this, and I know this is something that we always have to do: isolate the motor. So this is kind of what it looks like. I'm gonna go off camera and straighten this out, and I'm gonna put the Kapton tape on the other piece of copper, and I'll be back when I'm done with it. Okay, so this is what it looks like once I have the copper strips insulated in the area where these tabs come up. So I have my Digitrax decoder here. Again, this is the SDN144K0a, and basically the way this appears to work is, if you look here, there's a little sort of a hook right there. You see that? And the hole in the decoder has to be placed over that hook, and then you slide it back, and that hook sort of helps it stay down. And another thing to mention is that the back of the decoder is the side with the speaker, and the front is the side with the capacitor. So once you get the decoder situated in there, you fold these tabs back down, so that they contact the decoder on these copper pieces here. Then you take that little plastic cover. Okay, so I got it back on. It doesn't seem very tight on there, but you know what? I think it's okay. Now, I should mention, and I might end up doing this, that a lot of the people that I've read online who have advice about these things say that you should solder these. And I might end up doing that, but for now, I'm just trying to make sure I can fit all the components in there. So let's move on to the next step, which is figuring out how the speaker and capacitor are going to fit in here, because it doesn't look like they will. I know they will because I saw that other people have done it. I just have to figure out if I can duplicate what I've seen. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to deal with, I think, is the capacitor. And the information that I have from the internet says that it will fit right here, but I need to figure out what I'm going to do with all this excess wire, and I also need to fully encapsulate this with Kapton tape, because I guess if this goes up against metal stuff, it can create shorts too. So I'm going to put Kapton tape on this first, and then I'm going to figure out what to do with all this wire. I'm kind of toying with the idea of just shortening the wire so that it will be right up here. And then there's another trick that I'm going to have to do with this light in order to make it fit down here. So I'm going to go ahead and do what I see online, or I'm going to try to replicate that as much as possible, and I'll be back as soon as I have some of this done. Okay, so I got my Kapton tape around the capacitor, and I just twisted the wires, and I hope that's okay. Pretty sure it'll work. And what I'm going to do, I think, is just to tape these down with some Kapton tape on top of this thing. And it looks like the capacitor should fit here. I might have to bend the leads on the LED a little bit to give it enough space because it's kind of tight in there. So I'm going to go ahead and tape this mess down and see what I can do about the speaker next. Okay, so I've got all that stuff taped down up here. Haven't decided because I haven't been able to test fit the shell yet to see if it's going to fit here, but I might tape down the capacitor too. But anyway, the wire's taped down. I left the contacts exposed in case I need to solder them later, without having to take the Kapton tape off. And I'm dealing with the speaker now. I've twisted up the wire on the speaker, and I think I'm going to tape that down as well. And the information that I have is that the speaker will fit back here. And what I've seen is that people just tape it down like this. But something else that they do first is to put a piece of plastic over this to create sort of an enclosure. I've cut a small piece of styrene, very, very thin, and the information I've found online says to stick this to the speaker like this. But what I'm going to do then is I'm going to trim around this just so I know it'll fit here. Everything is installed now, and I'm going to try to put the shell back on. I haven't done anything more with the capacitor. Frankly, the stuff online shows that you have to do more with the capacitor, but I'm looking at this and I think it'll fit. So I'm going to try to just put everything back together here and just push it all down. Well, I hope it works because I really don't want to have to mess with this much more. So after test fitting the shell and finding that it kept popping off, it turns out that I'm going to have to do what I didn't want to have to do, which is to bend the LED leads. They're already bent from pushing the shell down, but I'm going to bend them a little bit more, and I'm going to push the capacitor down here, and then I'm going to tape it all down, and that should do the trick. All right, so there it is, and it did have to tape down, and I did have to push it down more. So I think I'm done, and I'm going to put the shell back on. And yeah, it does fit a lot better now that I crammed it down there. So, and it's not tending to pop back up either. I'm going to come back and test this when I have access to a DCC system, and we'll see if I did it right. Okay, so it's a couple days later now, and Dan's here because I don't know how to use all this DCC stuff, but we have a test track, right?
Right. Well, this is actually a programming track.
Okay.
When you first do an install, the safest thing to do to test it is to put it on a programming track because it doesn't have the full voltage.
Right, so it won't blow up the decoder if I screwed something
up. A lot
up.
less likely, yeah. Yeah.
So we're going to put the locomotive on here and see if I did it right.
Yeah. And by the way, I purposefully did not help John with this.
Yeah. Oh, no, I told people when I was recording that I did it when you were gone so that you wouldn't be tempted to.
Yeah.
So, and by the way, just FYI, we're using a real camera and a real microphone this time. That's why it sounds better.
Okay.
So, in case you're wondering.
We're going to put it on the track. Well, I'm putting it on the track. Only because John isn't as familiar with how to use the Digitrax system.
And I'm just going to move the track like this so it looks cooler.
Okay. So I'm going to go ahead and get into program mode, and I'm going to try to set the address to 123, as it's probably set to 3 right now.
The controller's chirping.
And it looks like it worked.
Hey, I didn't blow it up, Dan.
Let's try to read it back.
Did I do it right?
It's thinking. Yep.
I did it right?
I think so.
Hey, I did something right, Dan. I should save this tape and show it to my wife. She'll never believe me.
Yeah.
The track is fully loaded now, right?
I haven't turned it on yet.
Yeah, don't yet. I'm going to put the microphone over there so we can listen to it.
Okay.
See if the sound is okay, too.
Okay, so this is the moment of truth. I'm going to put the track power on. I hear sound.
It's not very loud.
Lights seem to work. Rear light works.
It's not moving.
It may need some tweaking with the...
I didn't do anything to the mechanism at all.
Yeah, it doesn't seem to be going anywhere. It's making noise. I would suspect that maybe those contacts are not making contact. The motor contacts are probably not contacting the decoder. Because that's the kind of behavior you'd get.
Okay, so I remember when I was doing the installation and I talked about that part where you fold the things down
Yeah,
and then put the plastic piece back on.
yeah.
And I said that, what you said a minute ago. We
Yeah.
were off camera talking about maybe it needs to be soldered, huh?
Yeah, that's what it's acting like, is like everything's working, but the motor's not getting any power.
Huh.
So I suspect that it's not connected.
Okay. Well, let's take it apart and look at it and see.
Okay.
Okay, so we've decided that I should solder the contacts here. Right?
Yeah.
And that's what I was talking about as I was putting it together, that I read people's comments that those should be soldered.
Yeah, I think there's probably just enough of a gap,
Yeah.
a very minute gap, to keep the electricity from flowing.
Okay. So we need to switch sides at the table, Dan. Since I'm installing this whole thing, I'm going to just go ahead and do that.
Okay.
Okay. So I think the best way to do this is...
This is John, by the way, doing this. I'm behind the camera this time.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
Didn't I say that we had to switch sides, though?
Yeah, it's
In
kind
the
of like
last-
role reversal here.
Yeah. I'm the expert now.
Yeah.
Not really, but you know. But so I thought that made sense, though, because since I did everything else, I'm going to solder these too.
Yeah. And usually if you have a situation like that where the decoder seems to work but the engine's not moving, it's probably because the motor's not getting any current.
Yeah. So here's the way I decided to do this. I'm just going to hold the soldering iron here until this area is heated up, and then I'm just going to blob a little piece of solder onto it, and it should be okay. And I'm going to use the soldering iron to push down as I'm doing this. It seems to be stuck down pretty good. So my original thought, Dan, was to take off the plastic little clip thing that holds all this stuff down,
Mm-hmm.
and then to tin the contacts on the decoder.
Yeah, that would work too.
Yeah, because then it would be, you know, everything would have a little bit of solder on it first, right? All I'm doing is putting solder on the end on the tip of the soldering iron. I don't think I had my surface hot enough. Is it still in focus?
Yeah.
Trying to have it hot enough first. Yeah, I think that's it. Okay, so I think it's soldered now.
Okay. Okay, so here we go again.
Yeah, it's
It's on a live track.
still hasn't blown up yet, and this one's the throttle, right?
Yeah, the one that's over the 123.
Okay.
The Digitrax throttle has 2 knobs.
Here we go again. Oh, hey,
There it goes.
it works.
And it's not smoking.
Smoking is bad for you. It's bad for your locomotives too.
Just ran that out of frame.
That's okay. I'm gonna run it back into frame. How do you reverse this? A.
The direction.
Right
There's a
here?
little direction.
Arrows pointing both directions.
Yeah.
Oh, I see. L and R, right?
Yeah. And
there it goes.
So it does take it a little bit of power to get going, so it might need some tweaking to CV2.
Okay. I need the shell for this thing, Dan. We're gonna run it for real, like a real train.
Okay.
Okay. Does it look good on the camera?
Yep, looks good on camera.
Here it goes.
Seems to run pretty good.
What's the horn again? 2?
2.
Okay, let's go backwards.
Runs like a Kato.
Oh.
There's
It's a broken record.
Yeah, there's a little bit of a delayed reaction on the horn, I noticed.
Yeah, I wonder why that is.
I don't know.
Well, I think it's a success. So,
Yeah, for sure.
So, I think that means now that I can install the other one
Yep.
in the other locomotive. So, we'll go ahead and make a video about that too.
Okay.
I give it thumbs up.
Yay. 10 out of 10 spikes.
One in the background.